Thank you for calling the Venue Helpline, the podcast where venues share their biggest frustrations, toughest challenges, and behind-the-scenes headaches. If you run a venue or work at one and you've ever thought, why is this so hard? You're in the right place. Each week, you'll hear practical solutions from vetted experts who've been there, done that, and know what actually works. Because running a venue is hard enough. You shouldn't have to figure it out alone. Now, let me put you on a brief hold for the next available helper.
Hi, this is Paul with Venue Help Desk. What are we tackling today?
Hey there, Brian Fine with Celebration Gardens in Orlando, Florida. So we get a lot of leads through Wedding Wire and The Knot. One of the most common inquiries that we get will say, hey, I want to know what a wedding will cost for 80 to 100 guests. So, of course, I've tried about 20 different responses to that question. We all know it's not a simple answer. I'm not going to tell them, between $2,000 and $30,000, depending on what services you need. I mean, they don't want to hear that, right? So my question is pretty simple. Do you guys have, or anybody have, a more of a canned response to that question that they found or you found has worked and perhaps gotten the client to at least respond back more often than not, to at least start some dialogue going? I've tried so many different responses and I don't really seem to get anywhere. So I don't know if anybody has any canned response that has worked for them. I'd love to know. All right, thanks. Bye.
You know that message you get through Zola or The Knot that says something like, hey, just wondering what a wedding for 80 to 100 guests would cost? Yeah, that question. And you can just feel your shoulders drop because there's no way to answer that without 15 follow-up questions. What date? What's the season? What inclusions? What style? You can't even tell if they're looking for full service weekend or just renting the space for 5 hours. So first things first, if you're frustrated by that kind of vague lead, you're not alone. This is one of those top questions I hear from venues because it's such a dead end if you handle it the wrong way. But the good news is this kind of message doesn't have to go nowhere. You just need to reframe what they're really asking. When someone says, what's the cost for 100 guests? They're not actually asking for your price. They're asking, can I afford you? They're trying to figure out in the simplest ways possible if your venue is in their league or should they just cross you off the list before even getting attached. So instead of going into the defensive mode or tossing out a wild range like anywhere from 2,000 to 30,000, depending on what you need, which just confuses them even more, think of it as your chance to start a conversation. Your goal with a directory lead isn't to educate them on every single package. It's to get them curious enough to reply again. You're not just trying to get a deposit in the message. You're trying to earn another message. Here's the structure that tends to work best for me. I call it acknowledge, anchor, and invite. Step one, you want to acknowledge. Show you actually read their question. Something like, thanks for reaching out. Great question. 80 to 100 guests is a really good size because it gives you tons of flexibility. That single sentence proves you're a human who's listening, not just AI sending a PDF. Step two, anchor. Give them one clear point of reference, not a range so big it feels meaningless, not your highest number either. You might say, most weddings for that guest count at our venue start around X, depending on what's included. That phrase, start around, does a ton of work for you. It's transparent without locking you in. Step three, you want to invite in with a question, an action step that moves it forward. Example, if you'd like, I can share a sample package or a few ways couples customize their day to fit their budget. Which would you prefer? Now that you've just invited them to talk, that's the moment you earn that second message. You can absolutely save a version of this as a canned response in your CRM or directory inbox, but make sure it does not sound robotic. Make sure it also reads like it came from you. Use your first name, mention something about your venue, maybe even a small curiosity hook like, we have couples who save a ton by choosing a Friday or off-peak dates. Want to see what that looks like? That little teaser tells them there's a why this could work for me. And that's what gets those replies. Here's the part most people skip. You want to test what you send. Very important. Keep 2 or 3 slightly different versions on your reply and pay attention to which ones people respond back to. Don't just look at open rates or clicks, look at conversation starts. Which version makes people say, tell me more, or can we set up a tour? Those are your gold standard responses. Refine those and build your directory message templates from real data, not guesswork. At the end of the day, directory leads aren't bad leads. They're low context leads. They just don't know what to ask yet. So your job isn't to explain your entire pricing philosophy or drop your full brochure on them. Your job is to earn the second message, the one that gives you enough info to actually help them. So the next time someone says, what's the cost for 100 guests? Try replying with clarity, curiosity, and a little human warmth. Because remember, the goal isn't to answer perfectly. The goal is to keep the conversation alive. Well, that does it for this week's episode of the Venue Helpline. If you're nodding along thinking, yep, that's me, you're definitely not alone. We'll be back with another real frustration straight from a venue pro like myself, plus the fix that actually worked. Got your own venue frustrations? Send it in. You can leave a voicemail or submit online at venuehelpdesk.com. We might feature it on a future episode. And of course, hit the follow so you never miss when your problem becomes the next topic. Until next time,